Right, I think we should now be powered up and online. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the second ever episode of Rock and Stone, Votann only podcast. A little bit of a supergroup, bit of a boy genius situation, bringing together members of three different teams to talk about very stunty little warriors. I am Tom of 6++, very excited to be back. Been painting dwarves, thinking about dwarves, playing a lot of dwarves in the last few weeks, so it's nice to just keep that rolling. I'm here in Cambridge for work, and I could only bring one army with me, so I had to choose. I've chosen the dwarves. It's just me and the dwarves in my little room having a great time. But I'm also joined tonight by two geniuses and wonderful people in this 40k world of ours. I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to start with James today. James, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, good. Yeah, can't complain really. A little bit cold.
Excellent. A little bit cold. Yeah, it is cold. I've actually been wearing a Snorlax onesie all day. But I took it off for this. Heating's on. I'm like,
so gutted.
next time. I'll wear it next time, I promise. And James, what's new in your hobby life?
Well, so we're mixing it up a lot. We're actually playing Age of Sigmar tournament on Saturday.
Exciting.
Here we go.
It's probably the first time I've done a Sigmar tournament in about 4 years.
That's amazing. That's
So
very cool.
quite
What are you
excited
running?
Seraphon.
I love Seraphon. I have some new Seraphon myself, but it's going to take me a long time to field them. What sort of Seraphon list is it?
So we're going. Well, so I'm trying to build a 2K list up. So I've got 2 Crocscore left to paint, and then we're done.
Oh, that's it. Crocscore's what I wanted to hear.
But we're going, I think, coalesced. So like the ones that aren't all space and starry, and But not going to go too much into them because this is a rock and
Stone. Yeah, no, that's it. That's all right. We won't distract you for too long. I'm sure there's plenty of Seraphon fans out there, but this is not a Seraphon podcast, so we'll get back on those. You have played some games with the dwarves, which we'll obviously talk about later on. Very recently. Yeah, wonderful. Well, I'm also joined, of course, by 40k's most handsome man, Jake Harding. Jake, how are you doing?
Yeah, really good. Just basically spent the weekend just not really doing a lot, to be honest. So, which is rare for me to be fair. So, really good. Excited to be back for Rock and Stone Part 2. Hopefully, many more parts. I also managed to get some games in as well.
Wonderful.
As we were discussing before this, but hopefully that will come up.
So. Yeah. I was going to say we'll come back to it because you played into one of the new meta terrors, so we can talk a little bit about that. I know James played into some of the scarier bits of the meta in his games as well, so we can definitely discuss that. So what we're going to do today is we're talking about the Votann Index itself, so the army rules and the stratagems. Let's see how long that takes us, because obviously we're trying to keep these digestible. And we'll do enhancements if we feel like we're rattling through it, but if not, we'll save the enhancements and do them in the near future. Obviously, we've come back a little bit sooner than planned because it's a good time to play Votann. People are excited about Votann right now. They've gone from an army no one wanted to play in 10th to one that is seeing a lot of play, a lot of use, and some success as well. So very well done to James Shapiro. Very well done to Jeremy of StatCheck. I know those are 2 names I recognise doing well with Votann over the last couple of weeks, and it's really exciting to see the top players are squeezing good results out of them. So great time for the index, so really, really appropriate that we start unpacking it and helping you understand how it works. Hello to everybody in the chat. Hello to Scrivo. Hello to Tom Green, who is about to pick up Votann. So looking forward to learning. Tom's a good man. We love Tom. Very happy to help you figure out Votann. It's sort of like, I guess, that thing you do with trucks with orcs, but with little dwarves instead. In some ways,
you can do it. You can do it. You can literally do like orc truck light.
Yeah.
So
if you like that, Tom,
the Sagittarius are very small.
Yeah, they're so tiny. Like, cannot emphasize enough how cute they are. It's like a mini baby truck. It's so good. Yeah. Obviously, anyone listening and watching, if you do have questions, you can pop them in the chat and we'll try and answer questions towards the end. Obviously, Votann-related questions, please. Votann-related questions. We're a Votann channel. This is a Votann thing. Well, actually, we're not a Votann channel. Chris would kill me if I turned this into a Votann-only channel. But this is Votann night tonight. That's the main thing. Right, all right. So let's dive into this index. Right, this was an index that when it came out, I don't think many people were particularly blown over by it. Obviously, it's had some changes, so we'll update you as to how it's changed. A couple of tweaks to the army rules. But I remember thinking on release that actually I really liked both the army rule and the stratagems in particular. I don't know how you guys felt about it when you first read it.
Yeah, I thought the strats were really good. I thought they were super solid.
Yeah, I thought,
Even the army rule was good as well, I think.
Mm.
And the detachment, like it all on paper looked really good. And then I think the problem was everybody else was a bit other than that.
And you were like, oh, you could do that. Oh right.
Anything you can do, I can't do better.
Yeah, it absolutely was one of those, wasn't it? Where it's like when you're assessing the indexes on their own terms, they all look kind of cool, and you can see something cool in there. And then it was very much the way it interacted, particularly with some of the worst things in the game, like towering and very easy dev wounds and all those kind of things, that just meant this didn't work as much as you're hoping. But obviously, what's nice as the game levels out,
I think it's what the big problem was. The Votann haven't been out for very long, and you're always going to compare it to a previous edition.
Yes.
And there's only one edition it's been in. And when you compare the kind of rule set to the previous edition, you think it's lacking a lot.
Yeah. Anything was going to be underwhelming.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Because that book just had so much stuff going on, tons of stratagems, tons of detachments, lots of layers. And obviously this was a bit of a 9th to 10th thing anyway. I think a lot of us who really like just mining through complex stuff were like, oh, there's not quite so much here actually to get our heads around. Obviously that's part of the design philosophy of the game now. And I think we are seeing with the books as they come out that actually that complexity and that techiness is going to come back once you've got more options to choose from. But obviously that's something for us down the line. So let's start with the army rule itself. This is Eye of the Ancestors. And this is pretty simple. If your army factions Leagues of Votann, every time an enemy unit destroys a Leagues of Votann unit, they gain 1 judgment token. They go on the naughty step. And an enemy unit can never have more than 2. If they gain more beyond that, they're ignored. Obviously, you used to have, I think, up to 3, didn't you, in judgment? But now it's only using 2.
Got a load of useless 3 judgment tokens.
Yeah.
Fine.
Damn it. And each time a model from your army with this ability makes an attack that targets a unit that has judgment tokens, you get a bonus. So if they have 1 judgment token, they're an eminent threat. Bit scary, not that scary, but a bit scary. We don't like them that much. So you get +1 to hit. But if they have 2, then they get the very well named Now We've Got a Grudge to Settle, which gives you +1 to hit and +1 to wound.
It's amazing.
What do we think of this as a baseline mechanic?
It's amazing.
I mean, it is amazing, right?
Like +1 hit and +1 to wound. It's just amazing.
It
just,
is.
And you've noticed, like with 10th, most of the +1 to wounds kind of abilities have gone.
Yes.
So to still have that army wide, it's just amazing.
In shooting and combat. So
it's just it's bonkers.
Being +1 to wound in this edition, I also think is like a bigger deal because of the whole toughness increase as well.
Completely.
If we look at it in 9th as an example, like if I was strength 5, you're toughness 7, like I'm winning you on 5s anyway. But now, like a lot of the tanks are 10, 11, 12, that sort of thing. So I think it's just a massive deal.
Yeah.
This game, I mean, because I played a game. One of the games of the tournament was against knights, and when all your bolt guns, heavy bolter type weapons, they're all winning on 5s.
Yeah,
which is just nuts. It's just
As soon as you go into, and as we'll talk about later, obviously now it's much more easy to get judgment. It was a bit harder at the start, but now that you can reliably have it in a lot of places, as soon as you're going into monsters or vehicles, the whole army can just work as a team to just clear stuff in a way that I think other armies definitely struggle. Like if they lose their kind of specialist sort of anti-heavy hitters, they don't have that same sort of reliability for getting through stuff.
100%.
Sorry, after you, Jess.
Because you kind of build, you build a kind of all-comers list, and then you come up against something like knights or a vehicle-heavy list. The knight players or the vehicle-heavy players going to take out your anti-tank weapons first. That's it. Votann, everything's an anti-tank weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth. I guess it's worth for the +1 to hit. It's worth the little caveat that they did make a lot of the Leagues of Votann units less accurate, so it's not quite as nuts as it would otherwise be. And it's very telling that the couple of units that we have with that better accuracy, like the Hearthguard, are incredible with judgment because suddenly you're hitting on 2s, and obviously I think they demonstrate why it probably was worth being cautious with the rest of it. But it's an army that, as soon as judgment gets involved, is very, very consistent at anything you have being able to do some damage, which I think is awesome. Okay, so let's see how that's applied. So we have the detachment, and this is the Oathband detachment. And this is where we've had a buff, a faction-wide buff, because essentially the rule here is ruthless efficiency, which is that at the start of the battle, you're picking a unit from the opponent's army, this is now picking 4 units, where once it was 1. And these units all get 2 judgment tokens just straight off the bat.
Not 1 judgment, it's 2 judgment.
It's
2 judgment. +1 to hit and +1 to wound army-wide against 4 targets of your choice from the get-go. Oh, hey Vic, nice to see you here, lovely.
Well, he's getting his next army in, I can see it now.
He's been talking about Votann. He's very much in alignment with me, which is just a big part of the appeal is just that they're damn cute. They're just a damn cute little army.
Yeah,
they're adorable.
I don't get people who don't get the aesthetic. It's just so cute. They've got the little hearth guard here, they just look amazing. So obviously, picking 4 units now, army-wide +1 to hit and wound, but it gets better because if at the start of any of your command phases, and it's worth remembering this is your next command phase, not theirs, if one of the enemy units that you picked has been destroyed, you will gain a number of CP depending how early on in the game you've destroyed them. And this is if you have killed it by the start of your first or second command phase. Very impressive if you destroyed it at the start of your first command phase. I guess maybe you could judge a dedicated transport that they'd forgotten to bring anyone to put inside and get it that way.
Cheeky Overwatch.
Yeah,
Overwatch.
yeah, an Overwatch, I guess. Yeah. And if you do destroy it that early, you're getting 3 CP. This is in addition to your CP for the round. If you in the 3rd or 4th, you would get 2, and in the 5th, you'd hope you'd kill one before the 5th. You'd get 1. What do we think of this?
It's great.
It's really good. It's really good. So you laugh about kind of if you've killed it by the 1st or 2nd, but now being able to throw 4 out, you can. Generally, what I'm doing is I'm picking 2 or 3 units. I really, really want that +1 hit and wound on, and then the 4th unit's either an infiltrating unit or a transport or something really, really easy to kill. So you pick that thing up in the first turn, and then you get your 3 CP in turn 2.
Yeah. I think that's the main thing, isn't it? Because normally in a lot of armies we're seeing like a sort of 3 really big threats, maybe 2, but then you do sort of have a few to sort of play with. Like if they put an infiltrating unit in to try and stop you, type of thing, just slap it on them really easily. Like a lot of the games when I play Tau, like if they've got Crute Hounds as an example or something like that, you can just do that, get it super easy.
Nerdlings or Rangers, those kinds of things.
And then things like a Rhino or an Immolator, something that's it wants to drive forward because of what it's got in it, and you think, well, I'll put it on there, and that's a free 3 or 2 CP.
Yeah, exactly that. You can always look at an opponent's list and you know what stuff they're planning to use early doors. Right, Carnivores in a Chaos Knight list, you're like, we know what they're going to do. They're going to run through a wall and start slashing at stuff. And you're like, well, I'll be ready to kill you when you do because you're not going to play the game without it. And I think the CP boost is great just because I think now, especially now, you can very reliably get it early.
Yeah.
Votann have, as we're going to explore, some amazing strats.
Really good strats.
Yeah. I was going to say, because the other good bit about it, actually, without spoiling the strats too much, is the fact that, you also have the 4 instant, amazing, buffs to your strats there. Whether that's, shooting back or, all the other bits. So,
yeah.
And it's also worth noting that Votann don't have any ability to make strats free.
No.
So actually getting those CP early is quite important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very important. And being able to have 1 or 2 big turns where you can use a bunch of these tools is absolutely massive. And a few, as we'll get to, a few of the tricks are basically how you get the maximum kind of output and push out of your shooting, out of your combat. But you also have good tools in here for digging yourself out of different situations. So I think the Oathbound is a great detachment. I'm a little curious, I guess partly just because of how they've written it, with Judgment in general. I'm curious how Judgment as an economy is going to work in other detachments, aren't you? Because at the moment, all of that economy is generated by the detachment. The Oathbound goes, okay, now you have 4 pools of Judgment. I don't know, a detachment where I'm starting from scratch on this would feel like quite hard work.
Yeah, I agree. I agree a lot. I think it depends as well if they bring back the 3 Judgment tokens. Is that going to be 1 detachment gives you up to 3? And then what is that 3rd one? Ooh. And is that worth dropping the instant +1 hit, +1 to win or 4 targets?
Yeah, that would be
what would be cool. I doubt this would ever happen, but this is like me wish listing here. Is if they the Oathbound became the army rule, And then the detachments determined what judgment tokens do.
That would be cool, actually.
Yeah.
Because we sort of had that before, right? Like in the old detachments, you had like if you have a judgment token on them, you get to reroll 1s to wound as an example, or I can't even remember half of them now, which is mad because it was only like 4 months ago. But
it's been a long 4 months.
It really has. But yeah, like it's. I think overall, like that, the detachment is good, but I do completely agree. Like the fact that you're having to lose stuff. To just that is really the because the Carl's ability is great to be able to give out judgment tokens, right? But in most situations, it's a lot harder than it used to be to get him to actually see something.
Completely.
Because either he's not on the board, or he's in a transport, or he's behind the wall, or
he doesn't want to get his face shot off.
Yeah, exactly that. So so I think, and then the other thing with it as well is like, because the only way at the moment is for your opponent to kill stuff. If you've got like not a lot of units, very rare to see not a lot of units in the army at the moment, considering they cost like £1 each. But the main thing is just like the the resources you're losing. Like if you're having to lose a Hearthguard, the 10-man Hearthguard brick to give someone a judgment token, but a 5-man warrior brick is not as like valuable type of thing. So you can bait out judgment token. It's a really weird one. Like half the time I've just found that like I put the 4 on and then like there's not really much said about the rest.
No. I think the other thing is you put the 4 down and then the stuff killing your units are the ones who you've already put the judgment on. Against Tower you go, right, your 3 crisis suits units have got them on. But the crisis suit units are the things killing your army.
I
guess that's like a play around, right?
Yeah, that's something that can be tricky to work out. You kind of have to judge, like, is this going to just have earned its tokens without any help in about 2 turns? And it's sort of how far on my list of priorities is it? It can be quite a tricky one. That was one thing I couldn't decide. I think I was playing Death Guard, and I was like, do I judge Mortarion? Because I feel like the moment I actually deal with Mortarion's not going to be immediate with the way the game is set up. And I was like, he also kills stuff pretty happily. So I feel like he'll probably get enough tokens on his own. And there was other stuff I needed to judge, but it was peaky. It was peaky. I did have to wait till he had that +1 to wound. And like, right, let's get him. Let's go.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting one. I think what I like about it is just that it's a little economy again. It's got that kind of ninth feel of there's a resource you have to manage. Some indexes don't really have this in quite the same way. And it's quite fun. And it can certainly reward a little bit of sensible sort of placement and timing. And it's going to let you do all of these cool strats, which is where we're going next. So let's talk about some stratagems. I do think this is one of the best sets of stratagems in the indexes, personally. I think
they're really good.
Amazing strats.
Like, I think, like, as a total, 100%. Like, some of them are absolutely, like, in my opinion, crazy good. Like, I can't even remember half the names, to be honest. I just know that there's, I think it's like a lot of people do, you know?
You know what it does.
They're all amazing, I think.
Let's start with perhaps the one that certainly makes my opponents the most upset, and that is Ancestral Sentence. So Ancestral Sentence is very straightforward.
It's just, I initially read this wrong. I thought it was... So basically, your shooting phase, one leads a Votann unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, each time the model makes a ranged attack, it has sustained hits 1.
Yeah.
If it has a judgment token, it has sustained hits 2. Now, I read that as if you have 1 judgment token, you get sustained hits 1.
Oh.
If you have 2, you get sustained. So the first 3 games I was playing, I was like, this strat doesn't feel that. Then I reread it and was like, oh no.
I mean, it's
like
this is a nice one because it's always useful. Because sustained hits 1 is still nice to have, but it's lining up with judgment tokens. Sustained hits 2, it's absolutely crazy, and it's 1 CP.
Yeah,
it's a phenomenal offensive tool. I mean, how do you guys like to use it? I have some guesses, but what do you like to use this on?
Hearthguard.
Yeah.
I'll take the easy answer, James. You can have
You've got a unit that shoots like 70, 80 shots into the right target.
Even,
like,
do you know what?
I'll give that double sustain.
Thunderkin as well.
Yeah.
Quite enjoy it.
Yeah, I've used it on Thunderkin, and I have used it on a 6-man Pioneer squad as well.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one, actually.
And I think that's kind of the key, isn't it? You want to take a max unit of decent shooting, and then I think I've not run it lately, but the nice thing about a 6-man unit of Pioneers is they're a good candidate to use it turn 1, which I don't think the other 2 aren't typically. They're not usually going to get a target turn 1 in quite the same way. So I do really like the idea of having a pioneer squad just rush up and just with all those shots from the autocannons just absolutely rinse something. So yeah, I mean it's phenomenal. This whole index is kind of one that, in the main, is about like lots and lots and lots of shots, lots of blast, guns that put out a very high rate of fire, and then kind of just absolutely soaking the opponent and letting the judgment do the rest. And this just really compounds that, because if Hearthguard get into something with sustain 2, it's just funny. It's just really funny.
It is the only
takes
time
a long
I've
time
ever
to roll.
been. Yeah, I was about to say, like, it's one of those moments where your opponent's like, right, you just tell me what's happened. I'm gonna go. Like,
here's my 10d6 grenades. They all explode twice.
You better hope your units are all below 5, son. Otherwise, we're gonna be here for even longer.
That firing. I think the general admin of firing Hearthguard at Necrons. It's just long. It's just long for everyone involved. Everyone's got to do lots of rolling for shots and saves.
How do you all do it? I do blocks of 20 hit wound.
Yeah.
They're just hit wound, like, and then because then if they're dead, I'll be like, okay, cool.
Save yourself the time.
Yeah,
it is quite funny.
Play smarter, not harder. That's what I say.
People don't know how many shots are coming, so you just watch them kind of like start to think they're going to make it. It's like, oh, you're not going to make it. There's still so much more.
It's like, here's my 10d6, and then afterwards you're like, yeah, right, now each guy gets another 4 shots.
Oh yeah.
What?
Yeah. It's just unreal. So that one's amazing. That's the cutting edge. And I think the other cutting edge one in here is Warrior Pride. This is actually low key one of my favorites, right? Do you want to talk? One of you want to take us through what Warrior Pride does?
Yeah, I can. So it's in the fight phase. So either players, 1 Leagues of Votann unit from your army, and 1 enemy unit that has 1 or more judgment tokens and is within engagement range, I should say, of that Leagues of Votann unit. And to the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes a melee attack that targets the enemy, improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1 for each judgment token on that enemy unit. Yeah, it's mega solid.
Really good.
It is
mega solid.
Super good. This one obviously a bit more restrained because you do need judgment, so you can't just pop it wherever you like, whenever you like.
Yeah.
But
still great though, right?
Yeah.
Like the fact that you can bump the gauntlets on the Hearthguard to AP4, I think, is the big one.
It's the same with the mauls on the Berserks.
Yeah, I was gonna say mauls on Berserks, AP4, super nice, damage 3.
Especially if we're going to be seeing a lot more dreadnoughts. This is like, from speaking from experience, like hitting a dreadnought as a 2-up save and making the fact they're -1 damage anyway. The fact I can bump myself to AP4 just means that I'm more reliably actually going to kill it than before, where it was like not probably like 90% not going to happen. Yeah.
I almost think our combat units really need this actually, but like for those big fights when they go in and you really want to clear something. I had a game, I think it was CSM, where I had one combat where I popped Warrior Pride, cleaned right through some chosen, and then didn't have it, and then they make a few saves. They're able to, and it's just very, very different. But it just takes the combat up to 11, and AP4 in melee isn't something a lot of armies have. And
it's very rare.
Certainly not wide access to it, like across like several combat units in a game.
I think the other thing I quite like is if you've got a little skirmish with some pioneers and a kind of backfield unit, you can then make them AP2.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
really swings the favour back to you.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's quite nice with the kin melee weapon on the warriors as well. Just a few attacks, just at high APs, just finish something. Or even making Thunderkin actually passable in combat doesn't hurt. So it's just remembering that you can use it to make stuff that isn't really a combat unit dangerous. I've never used it on a vehicle.
I was going to say that's the one that I think would actually be like not good, but like in that weird situation of like I really need to kill this model. Like if I can't tank shock and that.
It's like a land fort, like bully charging something and just getting those last few through.
Well, that's the thing with Judgment, the land fort hits on 3s.
Yeah. And it's a big, strong boy as well. So I think at a pinch, this would do it. It certainly helps. Yeah. So Warrior Pride, extremely good. And then we've got another all-rounder, but this is more of a toolkit strat, which is Ordered Retreat. James, you want to tell us what Ordered Retreat does?
It's amazing.
That's the running theme so far, isn't it? With 3 in, like amazing.
3, they're all really good.
Free for free.
So you do it just after you fall back, and that Leagues of Votann unit can shoot and declare a charge.
Yeah, super good.
It's the both.
It's
the
amazing.
both.
Yeah. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
especially on a unit like a hybrid unit like Hearthguard, who kind of you use them more as a shooting unit, but they can in a pinch fight.
Yeah,
the fact that you can then fall back and recharge.
Yeah,
especially if they're being led by an unhit champion, who's then going to do his 2-up mortal wounds again.
Yes, yeah,
really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. It just gives you a bit of flexibility, because I do think one of the challenges for Votann sometimes is getting a bit gummed up and tied up, and this is a way out of it, right? You can dig yourself out of a situation and not lose your shooting efficiency.
Yeah,
and as Jake says, doing both for 1 CP, phenomenal value. The first two are both battle tactics, by the way, so any Vect users out there, I'm afraid, those are the ones you can get us on.
Yeah,
but you can't stop ordered retreat. Okay, we have a next one, which is... This one doesn't come up as often, but when it does come up, it's just funny, and that is reactive reprisal.
Right. I have to caveat this first. Right. We have a running joke on Vanguard Tactics, which is whenever I have to talk about one of these strats, I have to say the following thing, right? Every book seems to have this stratagem, and they're all different, and it annoys me to the nth degree. So this is what this one does. So it's 2 CP. Your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit that has 1 or more judgment tokens has resolved its attacks. 1 Leagues of Votann unit from your army that was selected as target of 1 or more of those attacks. Your Leagues of Votann unit can now shoot as if it was the shooting phase, but can only target the enemy unit that targeted it as long as it's an eligible target.
Yeah.
So this one is you don't have to lose models. Now that's probably the really good bit about this. This isn't so it means the tanks can do it as well, which is really good, because in a lot of the books it's you have to lose a model, or you have to go below half wounds, or you don't have to do anything at all, or you have this one's have to have judgment tokens. Previously was a lot harder to get off.
It was a lot harder.
But now I think is easy as anything, to be honest. Now 2 CP, like Tom said, it's one of those it's a bit more of a toolbox strat. It's in a pinch, this is going to really help maybe to deny your opponent a card or some primary, or to help swing primary in your favor. So it means it's a bit of a mind gamey thing as well, because they're like, I don't want to put I don't want to not kill it, because if I don't kill it, it's going to shoot back at me and potentially kill me. But that being said, it's still great. But I think for 2 CP, depending on if you've got your target done, maybe sort of a ordered retreat combined with ancestral sentence, maybe a bit better of a combo to have your CP for.
And there's one more that we haven't got to yet that you tend to use a lot as well.
I don't want to spoil it.
Almost every place.
Almost literally all the time.
Do you want to talk about that one then? Because this
is the other. Because as I completely agree with you, reactive reprisal, the 2 CP thing is the only thing that keeps it out being in the use all the time roster. But it's just because sorry.
Don't get me wrong. I think 2 CP is fair.
It's completely fair. Yeah. I am not asking
this
to be one.
This isn't a complaint. This is no.
It's just one of those where I think if you look at like I said, there's so many armies that have this type of stratagem, and we're probably the luckiest in the bunch, other than Admech, because Admech you literally don't have to lose anything, and it's 1 CP.
It's just 1 CP.
But they are Admech. So I guess that's your caveat there. You have to play Admech. Shout out to the dude on stilts, but
we'll get yours on stilts eventually, I bet.
I bet. See, I'm not. It wasn't a joking; it was a jealousy. But the shoot back, like you said, it's one of those where in a pinch it will help you loads if you've got the CP. It does mind game your opponent, because as I said, the moment you have 2 CP, they instantly know. They're like, okay, I have to be really careful with what I'm doing here. Because I've found in situations where if your opponent gets a bit sloppy and they'll be like, okay, I'll shoot this at this, or maybe they're trying to set something up again with Marines, we're seeing the those land speeders. I don't remember what they're called, the storm speeders. They're if they hit you, they get to you get a plus against you. You can just be like, okay, well, you can do that, but you're gonna die. it's good.
It's good. I think I always find that it's only likely to come up either really early in the game if I had a couple of specific times where, for other reasons, I couldn't use certain strat, and I was like, okay, well, I can use this. And then I have also found it once you've had like that glut of CP, if you find yourself in a nice controlling position, you've had that massive pile of CP, you haven't needed everything to keep pushing, and then you're like, well, now it's just like like an extra, like a bit of a win more in some ways. Like it's like, okay, I've got resources, I'll do it. Let's talk about a strat that we all occasionally use once in a blue moon. I think I'm not afraid to suggest that if you're a Votann player, you should probably use the Void Armor stratagem when you're playing Warhammer.
Yes.
It's
recommended.
That's my hot take. With thought leaders and visionaries, I think you should use Void Armor sometimes. Because when you're being shot or fought, you can simply pick one of your units that's being attacked and reduce the enemy AP by 1.
And the one thing I will say about this strat that is really, really important to note is that it's a war gear strat, not a battle tactic. So you can't vector it, which I think is the biggest thing with
really
it.
Good.
Yeah.
Really, really good. And obviously it also stacks with cover.
Yes, of course. Very solid strat. Your Hearthguard love this. Any unit loves it, I think.
It's always useful. Obviously, the higher the save, the more useful. Like land forts also really like this.
I've been using it a lot on my land forts.
Yeah. So it's the 2-up saves that particularly benefit, but obviously it's one of those things that in all sorts of situations is going to help you out and just ruin the enemy's efficiency just that little bit.
I mean, that's it. If you've got a unit of Hearthkin on an objective and you getting shot by AP2, you pop the Void Armor, the 5-up saves going to save you a lot more than a 6-up save.
Yeah, exactly. It just swings these things at clutch moments. And actually, I think if anything with Void Armor, the key is working out when you need to use it rather than just all the time. The temptation is just to always like, nope, in the Void Armor, I'm going.
The other thing as well is like it can go like if you've got loads of CP because maybe you've killed your Ruthless Efficiency early or you've been stacking them through discarding cards. You can use this to make your unit more survivable, thus then making your your reactive reprisal better as well. Which again is free CP to do that, but you probably then will be better off, right?
I think that the other thing worth noting is when you're using it on scanner units. Is it scanner or is it I think it's the data tether ones? You get the CP back.
Oh, I forget that all the time.
It's
I
really
always forget the data tether. All the little fiddly bits of wargame are super useful, actually. And that's that one I always forget. It's
very useful.
It's very nice. Now, something I'm going to need some help with because I've never used this strat. This is the only one in here I've never used.
Never used this
maybe you guys know something I don't. But we have Newfound Nemesis. Someone want to take us through Newfound Nemesis now?
I don't mind.
Reading it for the first time in months.
Yeah, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. So, your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase just after an enemy unit has resolved its attacks. 1 Leagues of Votann infantry unit or mounted unit from your army that was reduced below half strength as a result of the attacking unit. The attacking unit gains 1 judgment token or up to 2 instead if the Leagues of Votann unit contained your warlord when it was targeted. So, easy way of giving you judgment tokens if you're not dead.
Yeah.
But
I think the warlord thing is a little bit kind of like, well, what's going to attack the warlord? Not kill it, but get it below, to 2 wounds.
Also,
and I don't know.
Let's be real, right? What is a warlord? Really? Do you guys I just tap the first character I see, to be honest.
If I was running Uther, I'd make him the warlord.
It's got to be the Carl, and if you're running Uther, it's got to be Uther.
I think that's absolutely right. And if it was 9th edition, there'd be some kind of rules about it.
Because you'd have warlord traits and all that. But I think maybe a niche stratagem, but definitely the worst out of the lot. I think
I've used it once.
That is just got 100% more than me.
A few too many caveats, a few too many ifs, and I think in a lot of situations, I've probably spent my CP on Void Armor to stop them hurting this thing, rather than spending a CP to avenge it after it's been fucked up.
The other thing I will say about this is this stratagem probably was a lot better before we gave out 4.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. It's a good point.
This now just seems completely redundant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now we don't give out 4.
Yeah.
So now we do give out 4.
Yeah.
But it's got a cool name.
It does have a very
cool name.
Newfound Nemesis is a great name, and it's one that if you remember in the heat of battle that set of conditions has been met, and you really need some judgment, hell, great.
You are really clutching at straws.
You're
there, like, go for
it. Sort of encourages you to throw your warlord at the enemy turn 1, doesn't it? Maybe like stick Uthar in a Sagittar, run him up the board, get him out in front of the enemy with a squad.
But then he won't die because he reduces all damage to 1, right?
Yeah, it's true. He's not very good at
So
dying.
then he's been reduced below half.
Not true.
That's not
maybe this is what Uthar is for.
Maybe that's his function. Yeah,
it's Uthar Tech. Uthar Tech.
There you go. He's going to soak it up, help you pop Newfound Nemesis if you've got the CP, and amongst popping the 5 other really good strats that are better than that one.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So that's the stratagems. I was very optimistic about this when I first read the index. I'm still optimistic about it now. Obviously, it's the change, the detachment makes this even scarier, but it's just a good toolkit for 10th, isn't it? Just gives you all the little things you'd want.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I think
I've used I use pretty much 5 out of 6 every game.
Yeah, and that's a pretty solid place to be.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know what? I agree with that actually. Like, I think this is probably the only army out of all the ones I've played in this edition where I do feel every stratagem, bar Newfound Nemesis, has a use. Or like, I remember I go, I want to use this. I want to use this. So I think that's I love them. I think a good 9 out of 10. And on the name front, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the big pluses with dwarves and with the sort of Norse lore is it just gives you so many cool angles for naming stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As Paint Celestine in the chat is saying. Wonderful. Okay. Right. We're going to move it along. In a second, we're going to talk about some games that the other two have played and some the sort of things about the state of Votann in the meta at the moment. But first, I'm just going to give you a little lore tidbit for you.
Oh.
I'm going to tell you about the Corv. I've been reading all about the different little robots, the cog robots, and I'm going to talk to you about my favourite one, which is the Corv. And this is the little cute flying little drones that hang out with the Grimnir, the little magic man, the wizard. So he's got 2 little drones that fly around behind him. They're specialised cog drones. They serve as a companion for the Grimnir, and they're both outfitted with a psychoactive barrier. I think that's the little shoulder pads, and they've got little crests like the leaders have. And so they serve as robotic assistants, and they possess the ability to help the living ancestor better focus their psychic energies as they're drawing it from the Immaterium. So they've both got a warding crest for defense to protect him. I think that's where he gets his 4-up inrun from. And they've got a little bolter as well, which is a little bolter, basically. It
is really a little bolter, isn't it? It's so small.
It's this little tiny pea shooter of a gun with a stat line that you'd expect. They're very, very cute. I think the Ironkin and all the little droidy robot guys add so much flavour to the army in general. But I'm a particular fan of the Grimnir and his little buddies. I saw a wonderful conversion someone had done where they'd made them like mechanical birds. And that looked really cool. Really, really cool.
We like that.
Wonderful. Okay, well, we can launch into some games discussion because you've both played some games. So maybe if we start with you, James, because you went to an event and it was your first event with them in 10th, right?
It's my first event with them in 10th. Only second event in 10th total.
Yeah.
Having a baby, this is what these things do.
Yeah.
Can't bring him along yet.
No, not quite. A few years to go yet.
Yeah.
Cool. So take us through it.
This is it's like a regular monthly one, local kind of coffee shop stroke gaming place near me, Darkfire Cafe. Really cool, really well run.
Super good venue, yeah. Shout out to Steve.
Yeah.
He does one every month, which is great. So I see 3 games. We had World Eaters, CSM, and Knights of the Imperial kind. And the World Eaters, I think, really good matchup for Votann because they don't really have an awful lot of shooting unless you take into it. And when you do take into it, you're kind of losing what you want from your World Eaters.
Yeah, I agree.
And World Eaters are kind of still playing the game where if you get Angron back, you've got a game. If you don't, you probably don't have a game.
Yeah, which is a shame.
Yeah.
With
he's cruising for some judgment as well, isn't he, Angron?
4 tokens, one goes on him straight away. You know? And then big unit of Berserkers, big unit of 8-bound, one on there. Oh, and then you've got Rhino, one on there.
Yeah.
So pick the Rhino up turn 1.
Yeah.
And then I think I picked Angron and the Berserkers up turn 2.
Oh.
It was horrific. He did this thing where his Berserks rolled, but he didn't get high enough on the charge, which then meant my Berserks were in Heroic Intervention range.
Oh.
So then Heroic intervened, Warrior Pride.
Oh.
It was not nice.
Is that like the combat army reactive reprisal? Like so
yeah, maybe Cronus Hegemony will get a bunch of stuff like that.
Just give me the Kronos back.
That's all I want. I was going to talk about. I was half tempted to talk about Cronus Hegemony in the lore today, but I think I'll do it next time because that's the detachment I've got the biggest hopes for. I just want an awesome combat dwarf detachment.
Does Angron keep? I'm going to triple check. I do think Paint says.
I believe Paint says that he does.
Yeah, it's something. It depends if it says he's set up as a new unit or not, or if it's just he's been resurrected. Because I think he does.
There's a designer's note that comes with it, right? And it says that if a unit with judgment is removed from the battlefield, you make a note of how many tokens it had. When it's set up on the battlefield again, it gets the judgment tokens back.
That's so angry. So funny.
You'd think if anyone can understand still being angry, it's Angron, right? I think he'd understand.
And he always needs a judge.
Yeah. He's a naughty boy. He's a very naughty boy.
Because he's always a naughty boy,
He's just terrible. What he's done is what he's going to do.
That was game 1, so that was nice. Really good game. Went very well.
Yeah.
Game 2 was CSM, and I've been a bit nervous about this because obviously CSM had been very much up on the rise.
Yes.
And this was double Forge Fiend, Accursed, Abaddon, the whole lot. And he was running me through the abilities, and I'm like, wait, what? A Forge Fiend does what? I was like, it's 3d3 blast -3 threat. No, say it again. I didn't quite get that.
It does how many hazardous rolls?
Yeah.
You have to take a battle shock test if you do your thing, but you've got a leadership of 6. Cool.
So you're fine.
Yeah. They're pretty scary, right?
They are really scary. And he put one in Strat Reserve and the Nurgle one he started on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
of course,
was, I'm going to shoot that. No, you're not. Okay. I'll point my Magna Rail at something else.
And hopefully hit.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm running 2 landforts with 2 Magna Rails. It's a gamble. It's just
there's so much gamble in that. But when it goes off, it's hilarious.
It's a very Chad move.
I love it. I respect it.
But this is where reactive reprisal came in really, really helpful because obviously he can only use his Nurgle Strat in my turn.
Yeah.
So he shoots me with his Forge Fiend, pop the Void Armor, hopefully survive. Land Fortress then turns back and shoots. And this happened a couple of times. One of them where he brought his one in from reserve, I reacted reprisal and got him down to 2 wounds.
Ooh.
And he had to re-roll the Magna Rail save with a CP to not die.
Yeah, wow.
Which then meant he didn't have enough CP for the things he wanted next turn.
That's big. That's very big.
And we're kind of getting towards the end of the round, turn 3, so we're kind of like trying to hurry things up. And played CSM before. Don't know all the data sheets. Didn't realise a Cursed Cultist had AP1 on the big guys. Used 2 CP to pick up his Predator on an objective. And then didn't have enough CP to then use Void Armor. And lost 7 Hearthguard to the 6. It was horrific.
Oh yeah, because they're 2 damage, aren't they?
2 damage.
Oh,
yeah, that's vicious.
Yeah. So a little bit of a mistake there, and it cost me the game because then I lost, I think, by about 7 points. And if that Hearthguard unit lived, they then pick up most of the Accursed unit. In my turn, 1 CP, fall back and shoot.
Yeah,
objectives mine. Pile everything on there. Abaddon's not going to kill that unit, and a land 4 and 5 Berserks. So it was like 85-92. So super.
That's a very close game. And that highlights a few interesting things, doesn't it? I think, although people and are about the land fort, it's very good with reactive reprisal because it is not something you want shooting your heavy stuff back in your turn. And as you say, so many defensive buffs don't work in their turn, which makes the landfall a lot more dangerous because all that AP1, AP2 ignore cover shooting has to be respected.
It's really good. Really
good.
Yeah.
Especially with the twin linked on the bolt cannons as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, really interesting. And
So
very tight game. It was one of the best armies of the game.
Really, really tight game. And I thought, if I had a few more reps and if I'd kind of known about the Cursed Cultists, probably having that one in the bag.
Yeah.
So game 3, going into Knights, really confident into this one.
Obvious reasons. The complete opposite.
He was running double Big Knight and then kind of a couple of Warglaves, a couple of Helverins, and then 2 of the Moiraxes, I think.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
And it was Canis Rex and a Castellan.
Okay.
Ooh.
Castellan had the Deep Strike. I think it's the Misty Warrior thing.
Oh, yeah.
Which was really, really, really good. He played it really, really well. Kind of brought it, like, Deep Striked it. But so, in his turn too, because he went first.
Yeah.
But then had screened it all with Armigers and Canis Rex, so that I couldn't get the 18-inch range from the Thunderkin coming in Strat Reserve, or the 24 from the Plasma Hearthguard. So I was like, well, I need to bring them in, but I want to shoot the Castellan. So I had to bring the Thunderkin in a corner, picked up the Armiger there, and then his whole Knight army just went, nope, we're gone from this corner now.
That's good play.
Which, total respect.
That was good,
And that is an issue that we have, right? If an army decides to go, actually, I'm just going to go fight you somewhere else because I don't fancy it over here. Sometimes that can be a real pain.
Yeah.
And those Thunderkin are horrific into vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's like the one balancing factor of them is they're so slow and their range is so short. Because if they had like even 24-inch range, we'd be laughing, right?
It's too much. Yeah. It would be too much then, I think. I think it's already a little bit much at the moment.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, 200 points for a Forge Master and 6 Thunderkin is pretty cheap. That's pretty cheap. They were on my list of units. I was like, they're already fine. I think we talked about this before. It's like, they're already fine. And they're like, 20 points off. Okay, mad.
There you go. That's it. And I think so they didn't play much of a role, but the double land fort was amazing. Because he was firing, you're in cover, you got the void armor, you're either on a 3 or 4 up save against his big guns and a 2 up save against all the small ones. They just didn't die. He got super unlucky with Canis Rex where he failed, he only passed two wounds through and then I saved one of them and he's flat damaged 9. So we did 9 damage and he was like, I guess I'm alive.
Barely.
Anyway. 6 attacks or something, hit on 2s, re-rolling a 1 to roll, and then it was just he got super unlucky. Like we both, when his Canis Rex came in, I was like, I lose that land fort, that's fine. And then when I didn't lose the land fort, and then you then have another 2 magna rails pointing at your knights the next turn.
Yeah,
it was just So then we picked up Canis Rex the next turn, who I have to say, when he's honoured, really, really hard to kill. 4 pin run. 3 up armor save, 5 up for no pain. Yeah. And this was where the kind of double judgment tokens on the bolt guns from the Hearthkin, the Pioneers auto cannons, like all of that winning on 4s or 5s. It's just he's taken 3 or 4 wounds from each squad.
That's it. You hose things down, right? That's how it works, really. I found this with the Norn emissaries and stuff. Where it's like it's not going to be one thing that does this. It's a team effort. Everyone's joining in, but we can get it done. 1 failed 3 up at a time.
And then it was just kind of like I'd kind of taken too much of him, and because he hadn't managed to get enough from me or kind of ran away, I was then on, I think, 5 out of 6 objectives, and then it just spirals away then.
Yeah.
Still super good though. Very solid.
Really,
very
really
solid.
Yeah, very solid performance because the CSN game sounds razor close and you've not played a ton of 10th of late and it sounds like, and with pretty much the units you already had for Votann, you've just turned up and run it pretty much all the way there, so that's great.
That's it. Well,
really good.
I had to build a second land fort and had to build a Sanctuary and paint that and then 5 more Hearthguard. Yeah. It was just like, well, I get 400 points. I guess I'll take another land fortress.
Yeah. I was the exact same when I saw the change because, like, I've got to what's the quickest units I can get in here to try and get the points up. It's like this is the big expensive things.
Yeah, just slap 245 points there. That's done. That's half of it gone.
Crazy. Yeah. So what having played a few games with it now, what's your reflection on the current state of the army? Where do you kind of think they sit?
I think they're really good. I think they're probably towards the top of A tier.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right.
I think they've got some harder matchups for sure, but they're not unwinnable.
No, that's the thing I like about it. I feel like I can have a go into anything.
Yeah.
Even the ones that are, for obvious reasons, just really, really difficult.
And they're just a really solid army now. I have to say, like they feel like playing the few games before the changes. They felt a bit clunky to use and a bit kind of. Oh, I'm going to run lots of Sagittarius to split my units up, but then I don't do enough damage, or do I have enough units to then? But with the points reductions and the 4 token, it's massive difference. I mean, we talked about this last week.
Yeah.
No, I think they're solid. I think they're really, really good, really good spot at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's why we're seeing so much enthusiasm around the army and people picking them up, and good time. So, Jake, do you want to tell us about your games? Because you played into a new meta menace, didn't you?
I did. So, so yesterday I decided. So I've got a team event coming up, and after LGT, a lot of the guys I'm going to this team event with, so a lot of a few of the VT guys, Jay Sebron and Liam Calabout. So we sort of decided we need Votann in the team because one, I've got loads of it, and two, it's just super solid. Like I'm sort of echoing what James has said. We all sort of feel it's the top of A tier. It doesn't have in my opinion, it doesn't have, like the matchups it has are all okay, and then some it steamrolls and some it struggles, right?
Yeah.
And that in teams is what you want, right? You just want one that's going to score consistently.
It's got a good looking matrix, right? It doesn't get blown out very often, basically.
Yeah. So we decided the next step of our team's journey was then to figure out what Space Marine we want to take because there's loads. So I played yesterday versus the Iron Storm Spearhead. So if anyone's unfamiliar with what this does, it is very, very good. So it makes vehicles really good. It gives you there's certain upgrades like lethal in an aura for all your vehicles, fullback advanced in fullback advanced in shoot, for all your vehicles within 6, blanking a damage within 6. Spoilers, you take all 3 of those, the ones I've just listed. And then you have great strats like shooting back at somebody if you go below half, but it's 1 CP way, and like sustained, and there's so much stuff right in there. And the thing with that detachment is that it's got so much, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if you are a vehicle, right? But it just so happens they're great. So I played versus the sort of dread list that I think a lot of people will be running. So it was double tech marine with 2 of those enhancements, a lieutenant with combi weapon with the final enhancement, 3 redemptor dreadnoughts, 2 blisters dreadnoughts, 2 units of inceptors, a unit of eliminators, a unit of scouts, a storm speeder, the one that gives you +1 wound versus vehicles, can never remember his name, a gladiator reaper, and 2 units of eradicators. Now that is so much stuff.
That's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot of stuff. That's coming from a Votann player.
And the thing is as well with it is it's weird because obviously the points reduction has been done because of Oath. But in actual fact, that detachment sort of gets around that because of the lethal aura.
It does with the lethal hits.
And then and reroll hits is what you want, right? So you just so you're like, okay, I'm just going to fish for these 6s or 5s in some instances with other stratagems, right? So
it's not really losing out, is it?
Yeah. So this was the first time with the Votann where I actually was like, oh, may have a problem here. Because there's 5 dreadnoughts that are all very tanky. Can be getting healed up by these tech marines as well. As I told Tom in the sort of prelude to this, I managed to get quite lucky with he left because he didn't have really a lot of screening units because all the inceptors and eradication in reserve. No eliminate, the eliminators were forward deployed, so were the scouts. And I will also say these scouts weren't just normal scouts, right? These were shirtless scouts. Because me and my friend Phil, he's got a Minotaurs themed army. So we've made Spartan shirtless scouts. This is a whole thing, right? But, and it's incredible. So
that's very Vanguard.
Based off a certain boxed individual.
But
yeah, so it was interesting because I managed to get a pocket in where I managed to get all the Hearthguard in and actually shoot both the tech marines and kill them off.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that made it a game, right? If that didn't happen, then I think I killed 2 dreadnoughts over the course of the game. I killed the gladiator turn 1 just from poor positioning from him. Like we were playing quite like brutally because it's like how we learn. Me and Phil is we learn by like making the mistake. Like once it because I'll never do it again, right? And I managed to dominate primary quite early because we were playing vital ground. So this is the one where like you have an alpha omega objective, and then like they leave the table depending on which one you rolled. And you can only score from no man's land. So there was a lot of fighting in the middle.
Yeah.
And it ended 65-65 draw because
Wow.
I scored really early primary, so I got a 5 and a 10, and then he managed to deny me for the last 2 turns where you actually get good scores. And then he though managed to get because he went second, he managed to get the 15 on the last turn.
Yeah, that's the big thing with that one.
And we both had 40 secondaries. And we were like, okay, this is a draw. But that is probably the most I've struggled to kill, like with Votann. So even with the anti-vehicle 2 up, right? Like it still was a struggle. So yeah, I think that's going to be like a bit of a thing for Votann. So like I said to Tom, the first thing I've instantly done is I've just gone to the high las on the whatever it's called, the like beam cannon, the D6 damage
the
one.
D6 las cannon with sustained D3, right? So you just push a few more extra hits through.
It's what it is it's what I found was the flat 3 damage missiles were great, but then the dreadnoughts make them flat 2, so it's not great. And then like I've got the one shot with the D6 damage, and I was like, okay, so they're not as versatile anymore. No. But do you know what? Like genuinely though, I didn't feel like they ever were struggling into hordes anyway, because maybe the sustained will bring it back for me. I need to test it, but it was just like
I've been enjoying the high-res as well. I've been playing it lately, and I just think it's got that spike potential. So your little 100-point Sagittar can just occasionally just absolutely go through a big vehicle.
No, 100% agree. So that was the thing, and then the other thing we then started looking at was, what do you infiltrate? And I think that's going to be a big problem as well because of where we have no infiltrators, and they do. And the Vanguard Task Force, whatever it's called. They all have weird names, right? The Raven Guard, actual Black Templars and Archangels. So that's going to be interesting. I think that they're probably going to be the 2 most popular, in my opinion.
I reckon so. I think people like the Firestorm, but it's not quite as...
The other ones are like all really techy because like the Firestorm one is brilliant, but you need to have like the dedicated transports to be able to like manipulate the
people just have that list lying around.
And I think Gladius still looks pretty good as well.
Gladius still looks fantastic. One of my personal favorites is the Storm Lance Task Force. There's a spearhead, whatever it's called, where you get the run and charge. The White Scars. The Space Wolves, love that. And we wrote a list as well, which was like 18 Thundercav, triple ballistas, double Wolf and double Fenrisian Wolves, double Scouts, and then like Logan and at least 2 characters in each of the Thunderwolf units. Like that is so much stuff.
So many.
And it's just going to run at you.
Yeah, like, and then that's like got spaces for enhancements as well. So it's going to be an interesting one. But I think the Marine book is going to be a slight struggle for us. It will be interesting to see how events go for all of us.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about as well. I mean, so off the top of your heads, what do we think the early solutions might be into some of those things? I guess the different detachments present different kinds of problems.
Yeah. I think the Vanguard is probably the biggest problem because of the infiltrate, because it can stop all our scout moves and then equally they're 9 inches away from us.
I think that is definitely a big issue, especially if it's Deathwing Knights, which I've always found really hard to kill with Votann.
Yeah, after playing like 20 of them at LGT, I'm just a bit done with those. So them being 9 inches away from me isn't really fun.
The Iron Hand, sorry, up to you, James.
I was thinking maybe more Iron, because the Ion does have them AP2.
Yeah.
I just don't know whether it's enough.
Yeah,
I don't think. Do you know what? Like, if they go the sort of way that we were looking at, like we've already changed his list quite a lot. So like with the changes where we ditched the Storm Speeder because we didn't think it was very useful. We actually put double whirlwind in and took some eliminators out and put in some henchmen. So the henchmen then can now screen your backfield.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Right, and the double whirlwind is really good. I know this is not a Space Marine podcast, but like anyone that does,
that's right. This is all useful for people who want to play into it.
Right? What is good, because what will happen is this double whirlwind goes. So both Tech Marines make them +1 a hit, so then they ignore the indirect. Right, one shoots, and does some damage, and then the other one shoots, and you can spend 1 CP to give it sustained 1, and if it's a vehicle, it gets 5 up crits.
Yeah.
And they're all lethal.
Yeah.
But the only caveat of that strat though is that they have to be below starting strength, so that's why one whirlwind shoots, and then the second whirlwind shoots at that same unit. And I think like just like that. Yeah, that alone is terrifying. And then you've got like the good screening, like the scouts can like come off the table, like, you know, jump around and do actions for them. And I just think like that combined with just the mass they've got, like even with our +1 to wound, like they're -1 damage, they can armor with contempt. It presents a puzzle there, right? Which I think is, I don't know what the solution is, but I think though your list, James, when you were saying about the double land fort, is really good into it. Though.
Yeah. Well, you need high AP and higher damage, right? Because that's where those lists which just go all in on the damage 2, damage 3, they fall down into 2-up saves with -1 damage. I definitely found the build I took to LGT was very reliant on it, and it really struggled with Redemptors.
Yeah.
Take some berserks. That's what you need.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Berserks with AP4, damage 3 in combat, a lot of attacks into a judge target, and a little bit more disposable than your Hearthguard.
Well, I had 1 unit of 5, and I don't know if I'd go to the 2 units of 5 yet. I'm still playing with it. Really, really good. They actually did really, really good.
It's good just pushing something off, isn't it? Yeah. I'd like 5. Yeah. I think it depends a bit on the terrain. UKTC, obviously, it's not as easy to use them.
No. I think that is a massive factor of that Dreadnought army as well, because to actually maneuver it around the table is very difficult. You have to be really careful about like how you move it, because we were even finding in the games it's like, I'll move this one here, oh no, I've just blocked the other one in.
And that list is still in the bind of it's going to have to give you its forward deploy units to stop you scout moving. And if it doesn't go first, you're killing them and you're getting CP, right? So you can definitely build a Votann list that's going to mosey into the middle, kill off everything they have that isn't their castle, and then start dealing with the castle. And that's less of an issue than the Raven Guard one, where they really can just hem you in, and that's a real problem.
The only thing I will say about the Raven Guard one, which I think is like the issue is the infiltrate, but then when you actually then look at the core of their book, like their actual offensive stratagems, there's not many. They're very defensive. Like one of the best strats they have is the if you declare charge on one of their units, they can move it D6 back.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Or if it's like a Phobos, you get scat. So so you can bait situations into that. The other good strat, which is going to be very annoying, is you can take a unit off the table. So
just make them into little pioneers.
Yeah, it's a unit of Deathwing Knights that's infiltrated, messed you up, and then
it's off to go somewhere else. Yeah. That would be interesting. I think the thing about Marines in general for Votann is that I'm not sold that book can beat everything else that's out there up the top.
Agreed.
I agree.
I think that helps, because I don't think you'll see as much of a sea change onto it if it's still like, well, Eldar messed them up, CSM messed them up, and so I'm hopeful that it's still going to end up sitting in and amongst other armies. But I've certainly found Marines like disproportionately annoying to deal with.
Yeah, I think
I'm quite used to playing armies that love Marines.
Yeah.
This is not.
I think the other thing about the Marine thing as well is there's like, let's be honest, I don't know about you guys, but 90% of people I know have a Marine army on top of having another army as well. So they are like the everyone has them type of thing. Maybe not like the optimal build, but
they've still got a build.
Like there's a build in that book for every army. So I think this is what we need to look out for, and it's going to be really interesting. I'm going to a GT this weekend that sadly isn't using the Marine book because, well, you know, I have my own opinions on that, but like, but then the next week after that, I'm going to an RTT and then the team. So it's going to be interesting to see how that Votann list, like the Votann, can deal with all these different types of Marines, and also to see which one is going to be the most popular.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Right. Okay. We're going to wrap it up. I think questions-wise, we just have one, and it's a doozy. It is 1 land fortress or 2. 3, 2, 1, fight. From Phil Gill. Thank you, Phil Gill. How many land forts? Jake's going to say none.
Well, I don't. Well, I haven't run any yet in this edition, which is weird because I used to run 2 in 9.
Yeah.
But James, you ran 2. Right?
I still run 2.
I ran 2 at LGT, and I swing in and out now. It does depend a bit on the terrain and what you're playing into.
Yeah.
I was hoping we would all go 2-0, 2-1, none.
I do think the problem with 1 is 1 doesn't do an awful lot on its own, and it's quite easy to avoid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas having the kind of double threat, like you can't really hide from both.
What gun are you guys?
So I have been running both Magna Rails, and I think mostly because if you run one Magna Rail, you might as well not run any Magna Rails.
Yeah.
So if you run both, you're more likely to get one through. When they do go through, they do just slap. I do want to try the conversion beamers on both.
Yeah, I've been enjoying the conversion beamer, but I am finding when it all ends up in a big brawl in the middle, suddenly that conversion effect doesn't work much because everything's got really up close and personal, and then you're not getting the sustain. When you're firing at something a comfortable distance away and you roll 2 forwards, you're like, I am so good at Warhammer, it's unreal. Look at all these hits. Look at all these hits at damage 4, like eat lead. But
that's you know what it's funny because that's the same reaction I had. Like,
it's the same. Just roll some forwards and you're like, yes.
It was like in 9th when like you drew the line and you managed to get like a really good angle. You're like, I literally have the biggest brain. Right, Vic, if you're still here, my brain's like this. Right? And it's like it's also that meme of like that lady that's like got all the like mathematical symbols around her. She's like, oh, I've run the numbers like a million times. How have you hit that many?
So
But yeah, like I do need to run a land fort. Maybe I'll try that out at the RTT I'm going to, because this is all just Votann practice, because the list submission for the teams is that Sunday night and I'm going to the event on the Sunday day.
I think they're good combined with Sagittars, because that's kind of the build, right? The build is little dudes popping out of the transports and they can fit into that game plan just fine. There are a few armies that really hurt land forts, but there's also a lot that really struggle to hurt them at all.
Well, this is it. I've played a couple of games now where they've had a lot of AP2 and cover and void armor. They just bounce, and then the land force shoots back, ignores cover, AP1 and most again. So you're just like, okay, this is fair.
It really, really bullies some of the matchups in the game, and that's the thing with it. It's not the all-star tank that it was, where it would just roll up kill anything.
And I think you've got units you can combine you kind of jump in and out using that kind of reroll wounds as well. Because I've been running kind of 10 Hearthguard, then 5 in one land fort with Volkite.
Yeah, 5 is nice.
The 5 pop out, reroll all the Volkite wounds. Yeah, works pretty well.
Yeah. I guess as well, like now the sustain thing as well, like most units you have sustain T versus actually a 5-man Hearthguard brick does seem really appealing.
Yeah.
I quite like
it. Because I think that one of the things that we'll talk about in another episode, but one of the things I think you have to manage, and I'm seeing lots of people managing in different ways, is the fact that you don't want to overcommit to a sort of drop. You don't want to be relying too much on, well, when all my stuff comes in from reserves, then I'll get you.
Yeah.
Because very good players are very good at going, there's nowhere for you to be, there's nowhere for you to land, I've screened out all that space.
The other one as well on that note that I found is, and then again, like alluding to what I said last episode, was like the why I stopped running 30 Hearthguard was just because also when you drop there, you've committed because you're not fast enough to be able to get anywhere else.
That's the problem, yeah.
Whereas if you've got half a unit that can jump in a land fort,
exactly
right,
that can go places. Yeah. So it's all stuff to try out. I think it's going to be interesting watching it evolve. Obviously, we're quite optimistic that you can sort of use anything in there right now. Yeah, and it's just a case of experimenting and finding what works. But Marines might be an issue. We'll see.
Do we think, this is what I was going to suggest and also ask the chat as well, because obviously we've done the like stratagems and army stuff today. Do people like the idea of a tier list of units? So instead of us reviewing the units, like doing a tier list.
I think a tier list of units would be fun because I never get to do tier lists. We don't do it as much.
I like it.
So I think we've all, because that's also my thing. I always say to Steve, like, let me do a tier list. He's like, no, rah.
No, we should definitely do that because we're a new podcast. Unless we do a tier list, no one's going to know who we are. So I think that's 100% the way.
Unless it is screenshot on Warhammer competitive with the like, and we put like a ridiculous unit at the top, like the Brawly Votann kin weapon man. Like, and I like, look what the people said. No, I think because for me as well, like that sort of goes into like reviewing the codex. Rather us then going like, these are the data sheets. We can.
Yeah, I think especially when you've got that many units to get through, I think a tier list would be a better way of doing it. Yeah, let's absolutely do that. Let's do that next time. That'd be great. That's a brilliant idea.
Which means there is definitely an episode 3.
Yes. I'll commission as many of these as you guys are willing to make. I'm having fun.
I have good fun. I have good fun, to be honest, doing them.
I have a lot of good fun with Votann, actually.
That's it. I think that's the big appeal for me right now. I think with Tent, they just, in some ways, they just kind of feel right now like the right sort of army for the sort of game Tent is, and I like that about them.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right. Thank you very much for tuning in. And if you watch this back later, thank you very much for watching it back. Obviously, we are Rock and Stone, Toys of Mass Destruction, Vanguard Tactics, 6++, united by a love of dwarves. And we'll see you all again soon, where we'll do a tier list with little teeny tiny steps so that the dwarves can get up it without too much difficulty. All right. Bye-bye. See you again next time.
Yeah.